Well, hi, Acadiana. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Welcome to your Monday. This is Let's Talk Tropics, and today we are having a live stream this time around. Not a whole lot to talk about tropical-wise. We really got pretty lucky over the course of the weekend where we left you on Friday. We had two potentially developing tropical systems, one on the East Coast and one over the Bay of Campeche. Neither one of those were able to gain tropical characteristics. So far, Alberto is the only name that's been used on the list. And things appear to look a little quieter here over the next several weeks. So we'll kind of talk about some ways to prepare and also look back at some of the bigger hurricanes that we've had and tropical systems back in the month of June. So let's get started with the traffic cams. Other than partly cloudy skies, it does appear there's a giant wasp that will be taking over Lafayette at the I-10 and I-49, so do beware of the giant wasp that is there on the camera. We are looking at partly cloudy skies, although there are a couple of isolated showers that have just started to pop up. These look like sea breeze type of showers that are right along the coast, along the LA-82, just north of there, so relatively unpopulated area. Looks like a couple of showers trying to get going here down around Marsh Island, and then out a little bit farther. We're really not seeing a whole lot just yet, but I think a 30% chance for some showers and thunderstorms will be a good bet today. Right now, our temperature at 90 and our heat index 100, and many of you are under a heat advisory for today. Well, let's get started and look at the tropical weather outlook. And as you can see here from the National Hurricane Center, they are not expecting any tropical cyclone activity over the next 7 days, which is a nice change from what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. We've had a number of little disturbances, and we ended up with one tropical storm. Even though it was just a tropical storm, it did cause a lot of flooding there along the Texas and Mexican coastline due to rainfall. And then on top of that, we had tidal flooding over Louisiana, Texas, and much of the coast of Mexico. So even though it was a very weak system, it was a fairly large, broad area of low pressure that managed to really slosh those waters around in the Gulf of Mexico for a number of days. So let's go ahead and start way out in the eastern Atlantic, and we do have a fairly vigorous monsoon trough that's kind of running off of the coast of Africa right now. This might have a chance of becoming just a regular old tropical wave as it moves out into the Atlantic Ocean. There's a little bit of Saharan dust up here, maybe a little Saharan dust right here as well. That would inhibit any development over the eastern part of the Atlantic, but mostly we don't see a whole lot of action this time of year. Looking at the loop as we take you a little farther to the west toward the Caribbean Sea, we've got a tropical wave here, a tropical wave here, one right here, one right here, and then kind of a little bit of a low pressure area out over the Pacific right now, and a bit of a monsoonal trough or tropical wave there along the northern coast of Colombia, but really not a whole lot to talk about. The Caribbean, I would say, if there's going to be any chance for any kind of development over the next several days, I would be watching this tropical wave here and this tropical wave back here to the east, although conditions don't look super favorable for any development of either one of those. I think those would be the ones to watch based on the environmental conditions for the atmosphere and also the water temperatures over the Caribbean Sea. Central America, we still have a bit of a trough that's mainly over the Pacific right now, but it's generating some showers and thunderstorms over Belize and into portions of Central America. And there is a little bit of a low pressure area right there, right off the western coast of the Bay of, or rather the Yucatan Peninsula, moving into the Bay of Campeche. Again, you can see a little rotation there as that moves offshore, but really not expecting any development there. And you can see the rest of the Gulf of Mexico is generally free and clear of any tropical activity. We've got a bit of a frontal boundary here that's kind of working its way toward the Gulf Coast over Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia with some showers and thunderstorms there, but really not much to play with when it comes to tropical weather on a Monday morning. Let's also look at the shear map. Now, this is really actually kind of interesting considering we're not expecting any tropical activity, but the shear across the Gulf of Mexico and much of the Caribbean has really lightened up compared to what we were looking at last week. We had a tremendous amount of shear over the northern part of the Gulf of Mexico last week and the western part as well. So our little trough Alberto was able to make its way off toward the west, kind of fighting the shear but really not having much of a chance for any kind of development. And there's a lot of wind shear out here in the Atlantic, but again, that's a little bit farther to the north from where that tropical wave is making its way toward the Windward Islands right now. So this is an area that we are going to be watching here over the next couple of days as it moves off toward the west. But I will tell you that the wind shear is forecast to increase over much of the Caribbean and even the Gulf of Mexico over the next several days. Let's take a look at some of the water temperatures too. Again, that is another thing that's really in favor of any kind of tropical development. If something were to work across some of these waters over the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, western part of the Atlantic, or even the development zone there over the western Atlantic over toward the Leeward and Windward Islands, you have water temperatures that are warm enough to support tropical weather. Anything that's over 27 degrees Celsius is considered 80 degrees on that Fahrenheit scale. So pretty much everything is open now from the Caribbean to the Gulf and the western part of the Atlantic, which is a little bit warmer than average than what we would see for this time of the year. And the tropical cyclone heat potential is quite high as well. Remember I talked about a tropical wave here in the maybe moving into the southeastern part of the Caribbean. I know this map is a little hard to see, but down here, this is South America. You've got Cuba here, the Dominican Republic and Haiti here, Puerto Rico right there, and then you got the Leeward and Windward Islands that kind of curve around there. So across the Caribbean, you can see just a tremendous amount of heat content, and the loop current is really starting to show up here over the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. So this is like high octane fuel for tropical systems to work with, because not only are the water temperatures at 80 degrees or above at the surface, but it actually goes way down deep in the lower waters. So any tropical systems that would try to work across this particular area would have the chance for some rapid development if the environmental conditions for the atmosphere were conducive for development. But we're just not seeing that right now. But with that high heat potential, rapid intensification, especially as we get farther along into the hurricane season, is something that we'll be watching very closely, considering we've had a number of systems go through a rapid intensification cycle, moving across high heat potential, especially over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. Just some that come into mind are Katrina, Rita, as well as Hurricane Laura. So those are all big hurricanes that really ramped up thanks to that tropical cyclone heat potential. But let's go ahead and look a little bit farther out into the future. And I will tell you that as you leave the month of June and you head into the month of July, a lot of times the first couple, 3 weeks of July are relatively quiet. For some reason, you get a little lull in the atmosphere. It might have to do with some dry air. Sometimes it's some enhanced Saharan dust that's out there. But this is the latest GFS model that takes us all the way out to July the 5th. So you're talking, what, a little over 2 weeks going out there, and you just really don't see a lot kind of grabbing your eye. For a while, it looks like there might be a little low out in the eastern or the western Atlantic, perhaps out here right about in there. There's a brief low pressure area, and then there's also a little brief low pressure area that kind of shows up in this region here. But like I said, it is not very eye-popping, and none of the computer models seem to be very turned on by any of these tropical waves that are out there. So we might be looking at a week to 2 weeks where we just won't have any activity. But as I've said, this is somewhat normal as you start to get into the month of July. So I do want to look back, though. There were several tropical systems over the past several decades that have made significant impacts on the United States during the month of June. And one of those was Hurricane Alma, which was actually a Category 3 hurricane that hit the Florida Keys back in the mid-60s and then made another landfall over the Florida Panhandle as a Category 1. Hurricane Alma then continued to move inland. Hurricane Agnes in 1972, also affecting Florida as a Category 1 hurricane, but this strolled its way inland along the East Coast and caused tremendous amount of flooding from Maryland to Pennsylvania to Virginia, and then going up into New York and New England as well. And for the longest time, Hurricane Agnes was one of the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history because of that amazing flooding that happened over the East Coast of the U.S. Hurricane Bonnie back in 1986 was a quick-forming Category 1 hurricane that developed over the Gulf of Mexico and approached the upper Texas coast. as a Category 1, causing some flooding, especially over inland areas of Louisiana and northern parts of the state. And many of you are familiar, or at least you've heard of Hurricane Audrey, a devastating hurricane that made landfall in Cameron Parish in 1957 on June the 27th, a Category 4. It is still the strongest hurricane ever to hit the United States during the month of June. Hundreds of people losing their lives, and this was just one of many giant hurricanes that flooded Cameron Parish, starting with Audrey with 57, but then consecutive hurricanes that came along, especially as we look at Hurricanes Rita and also Hurricanes Laura, were very, very strong in that area. And then many of you are probably a little surprised that we have a tropical storm on this list, but Tropical Storm Allison, if you didn't know, is the only tropical storm that's had its name retired, and it was because of the tremendous flooding that happened not just here in Acadiana, but along the Gulf Coast westward going over into the Houston area. Houston really getting hammered. Some of you may remember Highway 90 there at LA 92 there on the south side of Lafayette Parish as you're going into St. Martin. It was underwater. Highway 90 was completely flooded in both directions, and so was LA 14 that went east and west between New Iberia and Abbeville. Both of those roads and basically anything in the northern part of Vermilion and the southern part of Lafayette Parish were inundated with floodwaters, and the only way you could get from St. Mary or Iberia parishes to get to I-10 is you had to go all the way up to Breaux Bridge or Henderson. So that brought up a lot of questions too, that if a tropical storm was able to flood two of our major hurricane evacuation routes, then we could be in for some serious issues. Hurricane Audrey, by the way, coming on shore there in 1957. Look at the damage there. That's in Cameron, and it was tremendous, and there are many books that are out there if you want to read about Hurricane Audrey and some of the stories, the heartbreaking stories of folks that survived Hurricane Audrey. And then, of course, there's Tropical Storm Allison coming in on the Texas coast, meandering there for several days, then zipping its way off toward the northeast. And some of the rainfall totals, including here in Acadiana, were anywhere between 15 and 30 inches of rain. And we had numerous areas hitting 30 inches over in Texas, as well as southeastern Louisiana. So hopefully we won't have too many more June systems. I don't think we're going to see anything here, as we've only got 6 days left in the month. And as we look ahead into July, normally it stays about the same or even dips a little bit on average for the activity during the month of July, and then things really start to ramp up again as you head toward the latter part of July and into August and September. September 10th is the peak of the hurricane season, but we sometimes have a little extra shot there of hurricane activity here in Louisiana during the month of October. So what should you be doing right now with nothing threatening out there? I was at the stores this weekend, and pretty much everything is available for you to buy if you need it. Batteries, flashlights, water, and non-perishable food. Make sure you've got first aid kit all stocked up. Know how much medicine you have, your prescriptions. Make sure you know how many refills, and if you are going to be evacuating, make sure you know where you're going to get your refills. Of course, personal hygiene and house cleaners, you always want to have those on hand. Maybe you get a little bit extra just to get you through the hurricane season. Make sure you save as digital all of your IDs, insurance, and important papers. You can just take pictures with your phone, save those to the cloud, and then even if you lose your phone, you still have these important papers. A lot of stuff and photos and things you're going to want to take with you, though. If you do evacuate, make sure they're in a watertight container. And you're going to need a basic tool set for any minor repairs that you can take care of quickly during a hurricane or a tropical storm. And make sure you got plenty of entertainment for the kids that doesn't require electricity or batteries. That would be whether you're at home or if you're on the road evacuating. And for those of you who have pets, make sure you have all of the supplies, including a good carrier. Make sure all of the shots are up to date. You have all the identifications and food and all of the supplies for a pet. You can get all those things taken care of right now while there's no rush, and then while everybody else is rushing around, you can sit back and relax and know that you're ready for anything to come along. So I hope you enjoy Acadiana Weather Today's channel and Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, I would really love it if you'd like this video and subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications. I'm still waiting for that 2500th subscriber here on the channel. So if you got some friends who haven't seen Let's Talk Tropics or Acadiana Weather Today or any of our severe weather live streams, make sure you share that on social media. Tell some friends and just let them know that I'm here and I am forecasting weather from Acadiana for Acadiana. All decisions are made right here in Lafayette. I hope you have a great day. Try to stay cool. Again, that heat advisory is in effect. Don't have to worry about any tropical weather for the next couple of days. So in the meantime, I will see you on Tuesday morning for Acadiana Weather Today, which posts sometime between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you then.